Live, fantastic. Let's put the countdown timer on. Well, hey! Well, good morning, everybody. We're never quite sure whether we're on live, but we think we're on live. So welcome to Leaders Live, everybody. I'm Andrew Jenkins, and this is a short countdown timer to help the various live feeds catch up. And talking about live feeds, I just need to find the live feed myself. So, yeah. And it all settles down. All the live feeds take a little bit of time just to find themselves and settle down, as I said. And we can't wait for today's groovy show, folks. And we'll be hanging out with Dr. Iain Price, a real neuroscientist and founder of Think It Out. Give us a quick wave, Iain. Yeah, fantastic. Quick hello.
Hey!
Great to be with you. And the feed's working because we've got Jonas, which has just come in. So that's brilliant. Let me just bring up the feed. Okie dokie, there we are, and we're on. Brilliant. So,
if people want to join the pre thing, the whole kind of, how do they do that? Do we talk about that?
We've got a Discord group as well, folks. Well, I'll talk a little bit about that later on. There's a group that where you can join to just catch us early doors. We'll tell you a bit more about that a bit later. And Iain and I will be, Iain will be interviewing me this morning, and we'll be chatting about how high-performance teamwork boosts business productivity, folks. And helping us to engage, we have the lovely Birdie and Hugo, our fabulous moderator, chipping in. There we go. Yeah, so there's a quick wave there, brilliant. And this is our jingle. So we hope you enjoyed the short intro jingle from Your DMS after the countdown, and we're delighted that we are being powered by Your DMS, our Leaders Live sponsor. Yeah, we're so excited about that. It's an absolutely fantastic opportunity that for us and shouting out Your DMS. So yeah, more on DMS as we go through the show, folks. So yeah, let me just bring up where are we? Here we go. So, oi oi people and hi gang, it's Leaders Live showtime again, folks, and we are live just after 8:45 a.m. here in the UK, and we're streaming out on loads of different places, spreading the love, yabba dabba doo. And yeah, lots going on today. And if you're new to Leaders Live and you don't know me, as I mentioned in the countdown, I'm Andrew Jenkins, and Leaders Live is an interactive, dynamic, weekly talk show that generates business through networking community and extraordinary conversations that inspire. Wow. And our motto here is I to the power of we. And so we're streaming out multiple channels simultaneously today, as we always do, and on Your DMS's channel as well. Yeah, and on their company page and on my new website called leaderslive.tv website. So you can watch there as well. Don't you just love tech? And if you can't catch us on live or on the replay, fear not, my friends, we have you covered as we go out on podcast too. How about that? So everything is happening. And if you like what you see, or you want to say thank you for all the effort, and boy, we put a lot of effort into making this free show work for you, then you can buy me a coffee too, folks, and you can have a shout out on the show too, folks, and that's buymeacoffee.com/leaderslive. And even more better, there's even now an all new QR code somewhere on the screen there that you can see. So and we've added that to every page as well. So it kind of looks a bit like this when you get a coffee, when you buy me a coffee, you get a little shout out and your name comes up in lights there. It's just fantastic. It's a bit of fun. We enjoy it. It's really awesome. And a bit, as I said, a bit of fun. So interactive show, folks. So as I said, so please get involved, join in, ask questions, network with the live community, and even a little friendly banter for you regulars. Lead the way, show how we roll, folks. That would be great. And just lost the feed for a minute. Just bear with me. Okay, there it is again. And smash those likes and thumbs up too, please. We really appreciate that. It keeps us motivated as we're going along. And please follow our company page, and LinkedIn, and subscribe to the Leaders Live YouTube community for updates as we go along. And Birdie will put all that in the chat in a moment. So, put it all together. What have you got? You've got it. Bibbidi, bibbidi, bobbidi, boo. And everyone's jigging away to that. Fantastic. Okay. So, let's just bring in, where are we? Okay. So, this morning, let's bring in our Leaders Live guest. And as I've already mentioned today, we're doing things slightly differently today. We're turning the tables today. We're hanging out with neuroscientist and Think It Out founder, my mate, Dr. Iain Price, who's been on the show a few times now, haven't you, Ian? Talking about imposter syndrome. You're talking about the way the brain works. And we even found that monkey in my brain when Ian was working with me some time ago. So,
Didn't take a lot to bring out either, I have to say.
No, is that a monkey in my brain that I found? So our theme today is all things high-performing teams, HPTs as they're known as, and what are they and how high-performance teamwork boosts your business productivity. How are you doing today, Ian? How's it going?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Andrew. I'm picking up on the energy that you always bring. Hey!
Oh, that's brilliant. So thank you, Steve Whittle, for that. Fellow coffee snob. Yeah. Good lad. Fantastic. There you go. Just proving the technology works. Thanks, Steve. That's fantastic.
I love it. So Ian, I'm doing very well. It's great to be with you. Great to be with everybody. I feel like I kind of know people because I've been on and then drop in when I can.
Yeah.
And it's great. This is a fantastic topic as well. I'm looking forward to being the one that grills you and give you the spotlight.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think that deserves So Ian, look, I'm going to ceremoniously hand over to you, and this is how we're going to do this. So watch this space, folks. Here we go. There we go. So, Ian, you're interviewing me, mate. You're in the chair, so kick us off, Ian. Off you go.
Brilliant. It's great to be with everybody today. Brilliant. So we're trying to really get Andrew to do the work today. Yeah. And Andrew's got some questions that we're going to come to in a minute. And the key thing here is, again, we've got the lovely Berdine who's going to be able to be our moderator. So I'll bring in Berdine in a bit so she can sort of talk about stuff about what she does as well, particularly as we start to think about the question for today. Yeah. And the questions that Andrew, I wonder is this the time to bring in the questions?
I've got
time to bring in the questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you guys listening. As I said, this is an interactive show. So here are my two questions, and Berdine will pop them in the feed as well. What does a high-performing team mean to you, and how might it benefit your business? Question. And secondly, have you ever been part of a high-performing team? And if so, how did it feel? How would you sum up the experience? And if you haven't experienced this, do you feel like you've missed out? Have you had a bit of FOMO, perhaps? There's your two questions, and I think they'll be in the chat very shortly. So there we are.
Yeah, Berdine will put those in the chat. And the key thing here for everybody is to really think about that. That's framing what we're going to be talking about today, because this is about really you thinking about, am I part of a high-performing team? How could I become part of a high-performing team? Or how could I start to get betterer, to use Andrew's terminology, when it comes to this whole thing about team and teaming, as a lady Amy Edmondson would say. So that's kind of where we're going, and then we're going to look at sort of the stuff that Andrew's got. He's got decades of experience, literally. I work with sort of teams in a similar kind of way, and I've learned so much from Andrew. So I'm just excited to get even more out of Andrew today. Okay. And then we've got a new slot today, right? We've got this drop-in guest. Do you want to sort of say a little bit about the drop-in guest situation?
And just to remind folks that, morning Maria, so just a quick morning to everybody. So morning Jonas, morning Joe, morning Steve, morning Cecile, morning Mateus from Croatia this morning. His nomad digital journey, so fantastic. And morning to Maria, and I love your new website, by the way, he says. Fantastic, so morning to everybody. And our a quick shout out for our wonderful moderator too while we're here. So hi Berdine.
So Berdine, you're going to be able to keep, because I can't actually see any of the questions, which is probably a good thing. I can't see any of the comments either. So I'm genuinely relying on you today, Berdine. So Berdine,
it's fine. I can see them all. Besides that, I am so delighted that Andrew is sitting in the interviewee seat today, and he's doing all of the work.
Everything. So everyone else can lay back, Jack. So there we go. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks. Thanks, Berdine. So, dropping guests. So, what's this all about? This is something new this week, folks, just so you know. So, we normally do a get to know you in 5 slot, but we ain't doing that this week. We're going to switch things around a bit, and we're going to try something different, which is called a drop-in guest. And a drop-in guest is a new feature. So the way it works is we'll be experimenting with a drop-in guest today. After all, this is an interactive show, right? So what that means is, gang, that along with the interactive conversation that's going on right now in the conversation flow in the chat feed, in the comments feed, we will invite any one of you guys listening to literally drop into the show and be part of the live conversation just for a minute or so, as a live video guest as we're going along. And that way, as a drop-in guest, you can contribute your thoughts, you can ask a question directly and get involved too in a different way. So Berdine will pop the eCam feed in the linky thing below, so you'll see it in the comments. So you just press that to join into the conversation. So that's where we're going. Brilliant.
I love the way, Andrew, that you brilliantly embrace change. And I think this is something. So not only am I going to swap it over and I'm going to be interviewed by somebody else, I'm also going to bring in this kind of guest thing. So no pressure. But I love what you said, Berdine. This is all Andrew having to do the work. So that's good.
It's all him. It's all him. All of the technology, guys, is Andrew. Anything goes wrong, it's Andrew. We're not behind any of the systems.
I love it. Okay, so the main thing is, guys, smash the likes, as Andrew says. This is really, really helpful. We're both people-powered people. We're all people-powered people here. So the more of that, that's good. And then joining in, because the real thing here with neuroscience, a little hat on, being slightly serious for a moment, if that's possible, is that this is the connections you're making by asking the questions is the real power to what makes this different from just say reading a book or watching a TEDx talk, whatever. Okay, so this is really important, the whole kind of part of you engaging and asking questions, because this way we get exactly as Andrew says, it's I to the power of we. So Andrew, I'm wondering, actually, Berdine, have we got any sort of comments yet coming in on those questions? So I wonder if we sort of start there and then go into some other questions that we're sort of thinking would be useful for us to look at together. So any comments about the first two questions?
Perfect. So I've got Steve Whittle saying a high-performing team is a great feeling. It can be extremely rewarding to be a part of a team that is able to achieve great things. Right. The experience can be summed up as fun, exciting, and motivating. I would definitely recommend it to anyone looking for an enjoyable and challenging experience.
Perfect.
Then we've got Maria saying, I worked in a fabulous sales team at SHL. We went through a brilliant time back in 2003 to 2004. We all felt committed to the cause and bonded with each other. It felt like I belonged. It was fun, and I had a lot of self-belief at the time.
Love that. Beautiful.
Wow.
Steve Wetzel came back. He said the downside answer is that high-performing teams can be quite stressful to be a part of. They can be demanding and can require a lot of work from everyone on the team. This can sometimes lead to tension and conflict as people struggle to meet the high expectations. Just to let you guys know what happened, Mateus commented and everything just went bloop up. So I just lost my place.
Brilliant. Let me just
the power of Mateus' question.
Yeah, the power of the question. Yeah, interrupted.
Broke the internet.
Fine. Yeah. So, Steve's right. There is the thing about collaborating at a high level is that it is a very addictive experience, and all the emotions that you talked about there, Steve. In terms of the fun, exciting, motivate, all of those things are absolutely right when you work together. Very challenging experience, but often, what can also happen is that it becomes quite exhausting, and quite often a high-performing team may only be around for a couple of years before they all move on to different projects. So there is a finite time that we can collaborate, because we kind of move between cooperating and collaborating. But to collaborate, continuously for a very, very long period is actually quite exhausting. So I think that's a really good, well-made comment, Steve. What else is going on? Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, it's just go on. Any other comments, Berdine, and then I've got a burning question on that.
Burning question.
Yeah. Look, Andrew, you need to stick your guns right now. You in the back seat.
Okay.
Wait there. All right.
So,
Carolyn said good morning.
Good morning.
So good morning to you, Carolyn. And then Jonas just asked what could possibly go wrong. Jonas, we don't know. It's technology, anything and everything. We don't know.
And you put two of us in the room.
Yes, Matthias said, and this is the one that interrupted me slightly. He said, a high-performing team to me is a team that is led by magnificent leadership, is well-coordinated, focus on performing at their best, but also build good relationships with each other and maintain physical and mental health of all members. My time in the Royal Norwegian Air Force is a magnificent example of this, where we lifted each other up and supported each other if anyone was struggling, and also cleared up all tensions that occurred in order to perform our best.
Yeah, spot on, Matthias. Lovely. Really nicely said.
So we all have to join the Royal Norwegian Air Force, basically. That's what I think is going to have to happen. So the question that I've got for you then, Andrew, bearing in mind, thanks people, because that I'm just thrilled that there's so much experience of the positive. Because whenever I talk with people, I don't know about you, Andrew, it's often people would tell me that, Ian, I don't really know what that is. I've never been part of that. I'm trying to do that. So I think that I'm just absolutely thrilled. We got another comment from Joe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to read?
So
read
Joe
that
just said, I worked for a company called Data Business. The team there and our boss worked together really well. We all contributed more because it was less expected, if that makes sense. Our boss also used to just say out of the blue, come on, you lot. You've worked to the max this week. I'm taking you out to lunch. Loved that. And so did my belly. Mine would also love that, Joe. I can also do that. Let's just go and have lunch.
Fantastic.
So this is the burning question I've got. We've got all this fantastic experience, Andrew, and then the question I've got really then is, there's all sorts of different aspects of what makes a high-performing team high-performing.
Yeah.
And the question I've got for you really is, what do you think makes a high-performing team, and then why do we need them?
Why do we need? Right. Okay.
So what are they? Why do we need them?
Okay. Fine. Brilliant. I've got a few answers for that. So okay. So first of all, look, I believe that any team with the right people and the right input in the right direction, it can learn to become a high-performing team. It's not exclusive to high-performing individuals or anything like that. Any team, anywhere, any sector, any department can become a high-performing team because it's all about the people, right? But to become an effective team, it's an organic process that takes collaboration, it takes effort, and you have to nurture it. It doesn't come out the box. You have to develop this, and it's about changing people from the inside. Really, it's an inside-out process that requires a willingness to kind of grow as individuals. You can't just do this through process, but there is a process to go through. But it's a human dynamic process, if you like, and to go through as individuals and as a team, and that's important. And it also needs people to commit to that process of purposefully designing and developing you as a team, and that's really important. The other thing to say, it's not just about internal teams either anymore. This can be groups from anyone, like solopreneurs, entrepreneurs coming together, work on a project. It could be a mix and match of various different people from lots of different locations, working on something important, life-changing, community project, anything along those lines. So, it literally is any team. It's just a collection of people, really. But you know what? We all live in rapidly changing times. And I reckon, from my perspective, having worked with a lot of businesses, what I recognise is that, 80% of business projects, whatever they are, whatever that is, have a propensity to fail, to ride a new change curve, to play a bigger game. They don't quite make that project work for whatever reason. So you see, what's really holding people back is it's about not developing your people so you can play that best game, as it were. And the problem that business have struggled with for decades is finding those talented people and getting them to deliver change, because the people factor is hard for people to get their heads around. So people pay lip service to it, and they just give it the time of day, and we rely more on methods, on skills, on processes, on tech, getting the right people in the right boxes, in the right cogs in the right place. But that only gets you so far, folks, and it's still going on. A lot of businesses still use that. But the real solution here is that it's about the power that happens between people. It's about the relationships. This is what creates high-performing teams, nothing else really. Yes, there are processes around that. And this means for business success, you need to develop people, you need to develop the culture that they want to stay together, they want to contribute together, they want to achieve goals together, they want to commit to each other, they want to take responsibility for each other, and it all starts with the individual. I've got this slide here, Ian. I don't know whether this will be useful just to kind of just talk through very briefly here. So, and I call this, look, there's a very important equation that goes with high performance. One of the principles here is that performance equals us playing at our best game, our potential, minus our interference, the stuff that gets in the way of us as human beings to develop, right? The unhealthy behaviours, perhaps. So, the winning self-image here, if you like, that attitude, that growth mindset that we need is, what is that winning image? Well, this is really about how do we maximise the potential and minimize our human interferences, our conditioning, the things that get in the way. And when we do that, we can perform at different levels. Now, the interesting thing is when you apply that to a team, Ian, you get exponential increase in performance.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you've got too many dysfunctional people in the team, then actually that becomes the pervasive culture and the team culture goes down, particularly when you get a group of people together who aren't performing well, then performance exponentially decreases. So, it's all about how do we develop each person in the team. And if you like, I've got a little demo here. Is it demo time? Can I do a demo?
You could do a demo, and then they're going to come. And then I want to recapture some of this because I think this is the important part about we're talking about people, right? So how do we and how do we know then? I suppose that we are in a high performing team, because I think what it says is industry's done okay. We might have done okay. We might have delivered on a project, but there's this extra sort of elite level, and it's elite level only because I think it's hard for us to get there because it requires effort. That's what you're sort of saying, and you have to be intentional about it. And I guess that's what I'm trying to unlock with you today.
Absolutely.
What's that?
Yeah, there's a difference between a functioning team and a high-performing team. And the functioning team is a bit like the equation 1 + 1 = 2, right? But a high-performing team, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 = new, right? That's the difference.
And
how
more.
do we get there? And more, and more. So if we take this is an individual, right? This is a lighter. But let's pretend this is an individual. So, and the thing is, what you want to do is you need to create that spark in that person, right? There's the spark, and I hope you can see that. And we need to light our people up, but it takes that effort. You see my thumb on the wheel there has to create effort to make that human being spark. So if that's the human being, we've all got that bright spark in us. We've got that spark of potentiality in all of us, right? That's the potential part of us. But the problem is, if I put it in this glass, and this is demo time now, so I hope this is going to work live, baby. Who knows? What could possibly go wrong, Jonas? So, if I pour stuff into it, so, there's our fears, right? Our human conditioning. Here's our dysfunctional past, if you like, our past history. Here's our stresses, our anxieties, our fears, and it goes on, doesn't it? Now, can I get that lighter to work after it's had all of that sort of conditioning poured on it? And that lighter, just doesn't work anymore, does it? And yeah, if I get another person next to me, I'm just making. Do you know what? This is funny, isn't it? You do a live demo and it doesn't work.
Proving
anymore.
it's real.
Proving it's real. But the idea is, if I get this lighter
go.
and get this one to work, I can relight this flame on this lighter that was in the water, right?
Yeah.
And
it did work earlier.
It did work earlier. It did work. I practiced it earlier. So there we go. But that's the key. Is how do we light people up, Ian? That's the key.
Which going back to what Jonas said, there was something I think particularly in that we supported each other.
Yeah.
And the question I guess out of that is, whose responsibility is it to relight that person in a team?
Yeah, and that's interesting, isn't it? So, who's the leader of a high-performing team? Well, actually, leadership in a high-performing team, that's a really interesting concept because it's slightly different. Leadership, yes, there is leadership. And I ran a high-performing team, and we had all the addictive experiences that Maria and Matthias and Steve and Joe had talked about earlier. We had all of those experiences, and it was a fantastic experience. And I was the leader of that team, but I wasn't the expert in that team. And so what I contributed to that team is, these were technical people that I was leading, and it was a big team. There's probably about 10 of us. 7, 8, 9. It increased as time went on because people just wanted to join our project, right? But the point is, the leadership bit was what I brought to it, but I did it inclusively. So it's like servant leadership. You support your team to grow, and it's not about you as the leader. It's about your team, and to lead your team is about leading from underneath and supporting and growing through them. And it's not about telling people what to do, because the interesting thing about high performing teams is they're fairly self-managing. When we had our meetings, we would agree together, right? We would collaborate and say, okay, what's the best way of tackling this? I didn't have all the answers as the leader. All I did was ask the questions. What's the best way of doing this? Who's going to do this? What's the best thing to do? How do we move forward with this? Who's going to volunteer to do this piece? Et cetera, et cetera. And the team would just would self-organize themselves, and that's the beauty of leading a high-performing team, that as a leader it self-organizes itself. You just need to get out of the way. Yeah.
And it sounds like then you're both holding the space and leading people.
Correct. Holding the space and leading the people. Yeah. And letting them and allowing the space for them to grow and flourish and develop, to get the best out of them, is allowing them to do that and not judging them. And you need a safe space. One of the key attributes to high performance is that you need to build trust in the team. And it sounds easy to say, doesn't it? It's not that easy to do, but psychological safety is something that people need, and when they've got it, they trust each other. But all of these things can be developed, Iain. All of them can be. It's just purposeful, and when you start to build trust, people start to trust.
So there's some that sounds like it can be purposeful. There's some intentional things that you can look out for.
Totally.
But Dean, I'm wondering what's going on in the chat. Is anybody what are people saying?
Yes, let's give Andrew a bit of a break.
Thank you.
Andrew, you can have a sip of your water there. Jonas said, unfortunately, I've never been a part of such a team, but my initial thought is that they are...
The light is working now. Go on, carry on.
Okay.
There you go,
Anyway.
look, ta-da! There you go.
Yay!
So sorry.
Well done.
Well done, Andrew.
Okay, I'm going to carry on with Jonas's comments
Thank
here.
you.
So you said he's never been part of such a team, but my initial thought is that there are two different ways to achieve such a team. If a manager forces it, I assume it could be very stressful. Alternatively, if it is born from the dynamic of the group itself, it would be quite exhilarating.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonas, I think that's my experience in coaching has been, and it is exhilarating, but it is one thing that I think it's rarer to find. But when you find it, as Andrew said, you've been part of it, and others in the group have been part of it, you kind of know. And even people have said, I've come home, this is where I've meant to be, all of those kind of things. It's the archetypical flow. I'm in flow. I'm in with this group. I've found my flock, and all of that kind of stuff starts to happen. Any other comments, Badine?
Yes, we've got Elaine saying, I used to bond with my team back in the early to mid 90s, involving several jugs of Taylor's vintage port, most Friday lunchtimes. Some of these folks still keep in touch with me. Bless their socks.
Exactly. And
that's really nice.
Spot on, Elaine. I over the team that I managed was way back in the 2000s, right? In 1999, 2000, 2001. And when we meet each other again, or we bump into each other online, one of the first things we do is remember the fact that we had that experience together. And it's like party time all over again. Do you remember when we did that project, and we were together for that time, and how wonderful we did? So we keep coming back to it over and over again because it's such an experience, and we all remember it. So Elaine, spot on there. I love that. Yeah.
It's that special time. Go on, Badine.
It is. Jana said, imposter syndrome could also be a stressful factor here.
I wonder what you mean. Yeah, Jonas, I wonder what you mean specifically about imposter syndrome there, but maybe you can put that into the chat for us. What else, Badine?
We can maybe call Jonas in to ask that question.
Yeah,
We can test it. Let's test the new
test it.
feature,
Yes,
guys.
test
Jonas, we're going to call you in. So just give
There you
me
go.
a second.
So just put the
And
link in for you.
Andrew is going to love me for this.
Absolutely, we'll bring you in because I think there's something about that. As working with people, we know that what tends to happen when you're leaders, the more you go up the leadership greasy pole, the more likely you are to feel imposter syndrome. And I think there's a number of reasons for that, and we've spoken about in the past, but largely because
Yes.
you've got nobody else to sort of test that against. But I'm wondering where Jonas is coming on particularly. So how does this work, people? Does Jonas suddenly mysteriously kind of magically?
No, he's got the link. Birdie's popped the link into the feed.
So he's going to be
follow the
joining.
link, but Jonas, go for it.
So I've
Nothing like
popped the
putting the guy on
link
the
in
spot.
the feed for Jonas to just click on, and he is going to be redirected into Ecam and be here with us. But while we wait for him.
While we wait, yeah, go for it. Are there
while we wait. Oh, there we go.
There we are.
Oh, he's there.
Let's see if we can bring him in.
Yes.
So let's just have the drop-in slide. Here we go. And there he is.
Oh!
The technology goes, doesn't it? What could possibly go wrong? There we go.
So Jonas, you were this imposter thing. Where were you coming from on that particularly? When we're talking about high-performing teams and leadership.
Well, it's actually my own. I guess you can call. Sorry, I have to mute. Give me a moment. There we are. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
because
we can. We can hear you.
Fantastic. So my thought was actually before I started my own company and actually found out that I wasn't just bullshitting, that I actually knew what I was talking about. I was always afraid to actually apply for high position teams because I wasn't sure that I could actually perform to the level that was expected from this kind of teams with the KPIs and all that. So I never, well, I applied for them, but I don't think I got them because I was too insecure about my my abilities. So that was actually what I was thinking in this that seeing a high performance team and thinking I can be part of this. There was a breach for me at least.
Yeah, and that's going back to this, Jonas. If you can imagine, these insecurities, fears, dysfunction.
Yes,
this is the human condition that we all live in. And if we put the lighter in there, as I did earlier, it just stops that spark, right? And that's the thing that you fear. So, and the interesting thing about a high-performing team, Jonas, is that when you're part of that, then you need to develop and go beyond that. But the nice thing is that the team also encourage you to do the same as well and bring the best out in you and not blame you for things that go wrong, right, necessarily, but bring the best out in you.
And actually, now I realize that I am probably part of a high performing team actually working with Mitsubishi because I'm basically working on the highest level of the growth garage. So I'm working with not the CEOs of course, but the leaders of this group, and it is quite fantastic, and the journey. Well, that is maybe something we can talk about on another day, but it has been a wild ride until this point. So, but yeah, it's been fun.
Jonas, what was the thing that made the difference? As Andrew would say, what was the difference that made the difference? You said that you started to apply and you weren't getting roles, and then obviously something shifted. And I'm wondering, this is the shift that I'm wondering that Andrew's still kind of talking about interference. So, what shifted for you?
Yeah. I think actually what shifted was that I realized that I had this spark already in me, and I had tried to apply for jobs for a long time, but I also tried to have one of these 8 to 4 jobs, and I was bored. I was completely bored out of my mind after half a year in it. I realized that I had to do it myself. I had to find what I wanted to fight for and to do that.
Yeah.
So I made my own company and it has been an amazing journey, and I'm doing what I like to do, and I'm doing it my way. So that is
And you've
That
got
is
and you found your spark, right? Fantastic.
indeed,
Yeah.
indeed, I did.
Thank
And I
you.
found you guys, and I mean, it has been a good ride.
Thank you. Thanks, Jonas. Brilliant.
Jonas, that's
Well done.
brilliant. Thank you so much for that. And again, that's the one of my favorite quotes is a C.S. Lewis quote. He said, "No person with an opinion can take away with, somebody with experience," and that's great experience. It's great experience. So
Brilliant.
thanks for sharing that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So we might well come back
Thanks,
to you,
Jonas,
Jonas.
and thanks for being a
Dropping in and then
great
dropping
sport.
out again. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers for now.
So
Wow.
Yay. So it works.
powerful.
Yeah, go on, Birdie. Sorry.
I said it works.
Yeah,
Yay.
The technology.
We did this.
It did.
Yay.
Yay. There we are.
So
I'm so excited. That's
Andrew,
amazing.
because coming back to that, there's the kind of so what, why?
Yeah.
Because I think we're sort of still going around the outside here a little bit about, that's a high performing team. It might be stressful. There are some benefits, including vintage port with Elaine. Fantastic. Or Joe's kind of ex-boss, with lunch out. But what's the why here? Why do we need high performing teams?
Why do we need? Well, I think I kind of partially answered that earlier on, because actually the key thing is that business has invented all the processes we need and all the methods and all the departments that we need, and so what's the difference that makes the difference? The bit that's really left, the bit that we've never really tackled, the bit that we pay lip service to. We use this phrase, don't we? Look, people are our greatest asset, right? And yet, do we really actually mean that? Do we actually put our money where our mouth is and say our people are our greatest asset and develop those people? That's what high performing teams do, and to be given the wherewithal and the budget to do that, is where it really starts to fire. And to spend a bit of money on developing your people into that high performing team is really, really important, and that's the difference that makes the difference. It's also sorry, carry on.
Yeah. Now, are you saying that if we look after our people in the right kind of way, get the spark, relight spark, that support, then you get a high performing team?
No.
Does that?
So some ingredients here. So look, high performing team just doesn't come out the box. Although we've all got that spark in us, we have to find that spark. We have to generate that spark. We have to get everybody to spark together. So it's a combination of lots of different things. We need to increase people's performance and minimize their interferences, and that's the development piece here, right, for an individual and for the team, and to help the team to learn the skills, the softer skills of how do we build trust, what are the rules that we use with each other, if they can be called rules, or principles is probably a better word. What's our charter, what's our belief system, what's our value system, how do we operate round here to make this work? What are our do's and don'ts? So that team charter is really important. How do we handle conflict? How do we develop as human beings so that everybody has an opinion and we can have a difficult conversation where nobody gets upset, right? And how do we bring the person that does get upset back into the space again to kind of go, whoa, we're overstepping the mark a little bit here. Andrew, come back a little bit here. Because the interesting is, motivation theory will tell us that 75% of our actions, and Maria Jeffers will probably help us with this, but something like 70%, 75%, 80% of our behaviours are healthy, right? So every human being has the ability to have 20% bad stuff happening for them, depending on the day we've had, right? And we never know what's going on for people, whether they're in that healthy zone or somehow something has tipped them into bad behaviours, and we can all trip into that. So we're not good all the time. We're good most of the time, but we all have bad days, right? And a team will help each other to bring the best out and call out with each other poor behaviours that aren't acceptable in the team. It's like, come on, Andrew, we said we wouldn't do that. It's, oh yeah, I remember that. And that raises the tide. So by working with each other and calling each other out and encouraging each other, the tide keeps rising in that team. But it starts with personal development, right? It starts with coaching those individuals to bring them as a team, to get the confidence together, to learn the skills of collaborating, absolutely. But it doesn't just happen in teamwork. You've got to do the individual and the team together. And little by little, over a process, step by step, nudge by nudge, people grow and get bigger and bigger, and they hit a kind of point where it's like a transition. Let me just bring up another slide to help
Yeah.
us with this. So here's another thought for you. So this is called neurological levels. It's an NLP thing, and I've just adapted this for high performing teams. What is the difference between a functioning team, that's the blue stuff underneath the wavy line, then you've got this red or wavy line, and above this you've got this yellow triangle, right? It's all one big triangle. So, if we start from the bottom here, we can have different thinking patterns and different ways of being as human beings. We can be concerned with the environment around us, and that's really all we focus on. Or we can be really concerned about our behaviours, our insecurities, our imposter syndromes, how do we do things around here? What do we do? What don't we do? And, what are the behaviours that are acceptable? What can I say? What can't I say? That's the behaviours piece. Quite often, without any cultural encouragement, these can be quite negative, right? Because we're fear-based as human beings without development, and people prize in the workplace skills and capabilities. Nothing wrong with skills and capabilities. We all need to be skilled, and part of a high-performing team is you carry out good behaviours and good skills and good capabilities with you. It's not an and or here, so you've got to develop those first. But most human beings stop at the skills and capability level. So those three are built. That's the functioning human being, and to function in that arena, you have to control. So this is where command and control comes in. To control all that lot, you need to control people to make sure there's rules and regulations, right? And yet, no, that's not high performance. That's functioning. That's 1 + 1 = 2. To get to high performance, you need to think differently. And that's about thinking about, well, as a team, what are our values? What are our beliefs? What do we believe in as a team? What's our identity as human beings? And what's the purpose we're pursuing here? What is the endeavour that we're doing? What are the goals that we're trying to get here? What are we trying to achieve? And believing in that. Now, interestingly, that yellow part, when we start to think in those ways, that's when we transition into high performance. But the interesting thing is to manage that, to lead that, isn't about control. It's about discretion. So there's a very subtle difference here between the area of discretion and the area of control. And when is it control and when is it discretion? High-performing teams rely more on discretion. Okay.
Tell us more about discretion there, because I think that, again, unpack that a bit for us, Andrew.
Okay, so the whole discretion thing is that, look, with your team, this is about collaborating and working together to find what's needed to happen. Okay, where teams self-manage themselves. Because you've got high-performing people with skills and capabilities, they help each other to figure out what needs to happen. Now, they don't have to be high-performing individuals. They just need to have good skills and good capabilities and good soft skills. And with the right level of soft skills, with the right level of emotional intelligence, and the permission to sort our future out, or the goal that we're trying to achieve as a team together, and who does what when, and we decide together, that's collaboration, right? That's not right. Iain, you do this, Berdine, you do that, Jack, you do this, Jonas, you do that, and I will measure you at the end of the day, and if you fail, then you won't get your bonus. This is different. This is, how do we work together? Even if we fail together, we work together, we have success together, we celebrate those successes, as Joe said, and I think it was Elaine that said, we celebrated success with a jug of port or a lunch out. Absolutely celebrate those successes. Equally, when there's a failure, you fail together. Right, and you learn from it. The secret is don't do it very often, because we all say we learn so much out of failure, and it is true. But failure hurts. It's not very nice. As a high-performing team, you don't want to fail, but neither do you want the fears of failure.
Certain type, absolutely. I mean, if you're experimenting, ironically, and you expect to fail to a certain extent, but I take your point when you fail in terms of you don't hit a target, whatever that can be a real issue. So discretion, it sounds like this is about untapping. Releasing,
unpacking, tapping into that's whole spark. Where is it? That whole spark thing there. That's what we're trying to do. And when I developed this book, You Are More Than You Think. This was my first book, and this is all about how do we get to that spark, because we've all got that spark. And in a high-performing team, what you're doing is you're getting those individuals to find their own sparks and work together and spark off each other.
Brilliant. Which I think, again, I'd love, because neurological levels, Robert Dilts talked about that, it's inherent. I love what you got, that inherent belief, and it goes back to what you said about our performance is us minus the interference. If we can get out of our own way And Jonas has, brilliantly brought in that example as well. When he realised, actually, I could get out of my own way and actually start leading myself in the way I want to go. Suddenly it all happens.
That's right. But the interesting thing is here, Ian, that there's a wavy line here.
I was about to ask, what is the wavy line?
What is the wavy line? Well, the wavy line is it's a bit like you've got to get through the wavy line, right? So it doesn't come free. You've got to work at this. So the wavy line is the effort involved to raise the game beyond functioning into something new, right? It's because 1 + 1 in the yellow zone here equals new, not 2. 1 + 1 down here is 1 + 1 = 2. Functioning teams, that's all you get. And you get, with functioning teams, you get dysfunctional people and functioning people, but they're not really firing. They're not sparking. They're just lighters without a spark, right?
It's like an engine possibly that's firing out a sequence, right? So
all of those things.
All of those things. Okay. I'm wondering what's happening in the chat, Badine. What's happening in the chat?
Oh, we've lost Berdine's. You're on mute, Berdine. Muted
Sorry,
himself.
no,
There you
I'm
go.
on mute. Don't worry. It's just for when I cough or something, and you guys don't listen to it.
Of course.
All right. So, Jonas said, water, expensive electronics, and fire. Relax, it's fine. Because it didn't work. It's fine. Okay, great. Thanks, Jonas. Shane Ward said, when trust is established and people feel psychologically safe, leaders invite participation, harness the collective intelligence of the team, and direct it towards noble purpose and transformative vision.
Noble purpose. Look at that's beautiful. Where is that? Let's just bring that one up, Shane.
Love that.
Beautiful.
So this is the difference that makes a difference.
That's right.
This is, I think, high performing teams have other consequences beyond the functional.
Yes.
I think that's what you kind of have. Transformative vision. Oh my goodness. What a, noble purpose.
Noble purpose. Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah, I love that. Well done, Shane. Beautifully expressed. Love that expression.
Then so we've got Matthias saying, oh, sorry, Ian. You're going to carry on.
No, go for
first,
it. No, carry on. No, you carry on.
Okay.
Other chat, go for it.
Come on, boys and girls.
You guys shush. Yeah, shush. Matthias said, one thing I have noticed when being part of teams is the importance of setting expectations early on for all members, making sure everyone are okay with this, and also let all members have autonomy regarding how tasks are done. So many times I have experienced tensions because someone wants to have full control of every aspect and tend to favorite individuals over others and give them more privileges than other members. Then members don't feel valued and it will have a negative consequences.
Yeah, so it's all about those ground rules early on. Yeah, and culture. Absolutely, Ian, spot on. What you're doing when you're meeting as a high-performing team for the first time, when you're forming. Remember, there's who was it? Was it Tuckman who used this model? That how do you get to high performing? Well, you first bring a team together. That's called forming, right? And then, you will then storm. So you'll fall out and, you'll kind of test each other a little bit. And then through that storming, you end up norming, right? And then from norming, you can then quite often transition above the wavy line into the performing piece. But as Matteo said here, look, you need to bring the team together first to go through those phases and, to have the skills and the tools to be able to, how do we build trust? How do we handle conflict? How do we collaborate? What are the rules and the values and the beliefs that we need to support us, to move forward, that whole team charter thing? How do we, as an identity team, work together to get the best out of each other? And we form our own rules, right? And the nice thing is that they don't have to be led. They lead themselves. But, to get to those visions, it's good to have a leader that supports from underneath, in my opinion, rather than dragging a team along. That's different. That's a functioning team. High-performing team is a servant leader approach.
And having good disagreement sounds very important.
Yeah, totally. It's okay to disagree and have those robust adult-to-adult conversations. And that's really important. When difficult things need to be done and there are tough times in any endeavour, then how do we pull together to make it work? And that's when the magic happens. And the other magic is that in the relaxing times, when we've got through something and we've all been out for lunch with Joe, and we've had a jug of port with Elaine, we can kick back and we can have the child to child relationship as well. Now this is often not talked about, because we all talk about these serious adult to adult conversations. Absolutely. But you know what? As Steve said earlier, we have a spirit of fun as well in a high performing team. And there's a little bit of banter, and whether there's nicknames for people or whatever in a team, those are the terms of endearment that on occasions, when it's appropriate, child to child relationships are, equally where we sort stuff out, because we've got to trust each other so well, and to have that safety with each other. We have those terms of endearment for one another. So you don't ignore the child to child, but child to adult, child to parent relationships in high performing teams. You don't have those. You don't need to have those that often, in my opinion. So adult to adult,
That's amazing.
child to child. Yeah.
And I love this whole idea, sense of fun and play.
Playfulness, absolutely.
Playfulness. Yeah, I mean, a mutual friend of ours, Sarah Sabai, would say that's again one of the key things that's missing out of high performing teams, is that sense of creative fun.
Yeah, it's all about the fun factor, and that. But the point is, we work hard as in a high performing team, but we have fun as well. So we have a jug of port. Our boss takes us out for lunch, and we love it, and we can all let our hair down, right? And we can tease the boss. So
and there's that again. It's going back to that sort of psychological safety we were talking about. Berdine, what else is in the chat?
We've got David Fenton saying, good point, and agree with this view. And David also asked Andrew, can I have a copy of these notes?
Well, the replay's there, mate. The replay's there. So there you go.
And there is a prize at the end of today. There is for those that are ready and willing and quick. We'll come to that. A little bit of a prize. One of the things, Andrew, where the time is flying past already, as always. There's just so much to talk about. You opened up a poll, didn't you?
Oh, I did. Yeah, let's have a quick look at the poll.
I'm just interested what the results were from that poll, because we're talking about what's the difference that makes the difference. What's the magic sauce as a leader that's listening to this? Where are we going to put our attention? Oh, wow, look at that.
So these polls are really great on LinkedIn, and when we build up to the show, we generally do a poll at some point, and it's all about the question you ask, isn't it? So what works best to develop collaboration skills in your team? That was the question that I asked. I wanted to make it very open so people could go anywhere with this, but the choices were trust and people skills, process, the right processes, the right tech, the right people. Okay. Accountability, commitment being an important feature, or common goals and targets, and you can see the percentage difference here with them, which is quite interesting. So this
huge difference.
Yeah, this wasn't a trick question. This is just putting it out there. What do you think? Now, none of those are necessarily wrong, but there's one which I think is more writerer than the others, if you like. The real key here, the magic sauce, is. Look, yeah, it is important to have processes and the right tech and the right people. Yeah, if you've got dysfunctional people in a team or toxic people, you ain't going to have a high-performing team. So right people, yes, I get that. But on the assumption that you haven't got toxic people, and if you have, you never get to a rising tide at all. One toxic person in a team is like a bad apple spoils the batch, right? You just can't function if you've got a toxic person.
How do you manage a toxic person?
I'll come on to that in a minute, and I'll like to answer that, because I think that's really important. The right tech, obviously, if you've got poor tech, then people are going to get really fed up when they can't get stuff done quickly, and so processes again are important. You need to honour processes, but are they as important as trust and the people skills? My belief is that look, you need to build the trust, you need to build the people skills, you need the soft skills, you need the emotional intelligence to get the tide to rise. But you use the processes, you use the tech, and you have the right people along the way, right? They're ands. But the important piece is the development piece. And accountability and commitment, absolutely. When you've got trust and you've got good people skills and you've got collaboration, then accountability and commitment will come. You can't have high performance without those two bits. You need people to commit, you need them to be accountable. But the interesting thing is, when you create the psychological safety and the trust within a team, and you've got the right people, then they will put their hands up to be accountable and to commit to stuff. And likewise, high performing teams without goals and without common targets, it just ain't going to work, because people need something to aim for. We need the dopamine hits along the way that says we just hit phase 1 and we did it 2 weeks ahead of time, or we just hit this this sprint that we've done in these 2 weeks, and Joe's going to take us out for lunch now, and Elaine will give us a jug of port, etc. So yeah, interesting. 70% said trust and people skills, and I think that's where my money would be in high performing teams. And we've got a lot of people involved with this. So, the interesting thing is that this is subjective data, right? But when you start to add it up like you do in a poll, then it becomes quite objective. It has an objectivity of its own, and it gives us a trend, and that's where the trend is. And I would support this trend wholly. Now, you asked about toxic people. Well, interesting. This is going to sound a little bit tough for some people, right? But this is where tough love comes in. I was working with a team a few years ago, and in fact, we were going through this developing high performance team piece, and we'd got the engagement date and everything at the time to start, which is a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, in advance. And I just said to the managing director, said to me, "Is there anything that we need to do beforehand?" And I said, "Yeah, and I need you to sit down for this." And he said, "Okay, what's happening?" And I asked him, I said, "Look, have you got any toxic people in your team?" And he looked at me and he got quite serious, and he said, "So you've obviously picked something up, Andrew." And I said, "Maybe, I'm just picking up the vibes." And he said, "Well, we have, and we've never been able to deal with it, but I'm hoping this program will be the magic sauce that sorts this person out." And there was this silence, and he looked at me and he said, right, and he was kind of nodding at me, and I was shaking my head, and it's going, "Right, so it's not a nod. This isn't right. So what do you mean, Andrew?" And I said, "Look, if you want me to work with this team, with your team, and this is a leadership team, it's an executive team, and you're making big decisions, and you've got a toxic person at the highest level in your company, do you really think that if you haven't sorted that person out in all this time, and that person has been with you for how many years?" And he kind of coughed and spluttered a little bit and going, "We've never really been able to manage this person." So, and I said, "Well, this is the thing, right? So I won't start this program until you have exited that person."
Wow.
Now that sounds really upsetting, but this was a leadership team, right? So, they have to have grown-up conversations. Sometimes things don't work out. And it could be that person just wasn't right for that team. It doesn't mean that they're toxic all the way. It could just be that for some reason within that team, they just don't gel. They just don't work.
It's not a right match, right?
It's not a right match. Or it could be something deeper that, there's something more insidious at play. But, who knows? But the point was, he got quite serious at that point and going, "Oh, right, I really get this." Now, he honoured that, and this is where the good news comes in. So that's the tough bit. That was hard to say that, but it was the right thing to do. Sometimes you have to do the right thing to allow a team to perform. If you've got a garden that has weeds in it, what do you do?
Yeah, I love that analogy.
You've got to get rid of the weeds, otherwise the flowers ain't going to grow, kiddo. They're just not. And one weed will destroy everything. One bad apple destroys everything, right? So that person needed to go. Interestingly, though, Ian, the outworking of that was that when we came together as a team, we spent a whole day, our first day, doing no content whatsoever. We were just washing out the toxicity of that person, and it was like a breath of fresh air, and they all felt relieved. It was like the best thing that ever happened, and exponentially, they jumped into trust all on their own without any
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
So again, in a way, that's kind of like getting the interference out of the way. There's a talking
That's
about
right.
personal interference.
Correct.
Team interference.
Yeah.
So our time is absolutely, we're rocketing through. So it's a question I'm going to ask people. I think, what are their top 3 tips for, I'm going to come to this, Berdine, hopefully when it's in the chat. So just giving people time. What are their top 3 tips for a high performing team?
Okay, I'm just looking at this.
So how do you describe a toxic person?
That's
a great question.
That. Yeah, I've just done that. So a toxic person to me is someone that just doesn't sing in the same way as everybody else. They're off key. I'm using a singing analogy now. And they just can't get into the vibe.
You can't get that resonant frequency. If there's that one frequency that's just out.
And it's just like, and it just grates. Okay. Now, some of this, Caroline, can be down to quite deep-rooted things like Machiavellian tendencies or sociopath behaviour. And look, I'm a great believer in the human spirit, Caroline, but there are some therapies that we actually haven't been able to find a therapy that works with some really deep seated aspects of narcissism and stuff like that. Although you other people have got different views, but actually, if someone's so far gone, it's almost impossible to do something with that person if they're not willing to change. And this is the key. How do you identify a toxic person? Well, Caroline, that is about are they willing to change? Are they willing to put their hand up and kind of go, yeah, that's me. I've been called out. I will try and improve. What I find with toxic people is they'll just blame everybody else. It's not their problem. They're okay. It's everybody else. It's the system. It's this. It's that. It's the other. They will not acknowledge the fact that they've got a flaw, and we're all flawed in some ways.
Yeah.
The beauty of human nature is we're all clay jars, and we're all flawed. But inside each clay jar is a pot of gold, right? But some flaws are so poor that you never get to see the beauty of that person. For some reason, that's it. Or
in that setting,
yeah,
I think that's the key part. In that
yeah.
setting. So sometimes I think as a leader, helping clients or helping teams to have people leave well, so that they can come back is an incredible thing in itself.
Yeah,
or recognizing that team can be a different team within the same company.
Yeah,
there's a better fit, which ultimately
this isn't working out for you. Let's try something else.
What's going on?
Yeah,
so
what's going on?
I'm really keen to come to what's the 3 points that you think are the top tips for you. But before I ask you that question, I'm asking everybody else to think about that because I'm interested in what that might be. Again, remember, this is you wiring in your head when you are answering that question, what it is that you need to focus on so that you can start leading more effectively and having more, to use Andrew's terminology, of a high-performing team and move beyond that just functional team. Andrew, I'm sure people are talking and thinking, okay, I love this. So how can I get more of your magic sauce, your secret sauce, the way in which you work to unlock, release, all of that kind of within their teams? How could they do that?
Okay, cool. So this is a slide I prepared earlier in true Blue Peter fashion here. So this is my website here, and I'm just trying to make it work now. So where is it? There it is. So just move this out of the way. Just bear with me. Okay, good. I can now operate it. So if you jump onto my website, pdx-consulting.com, under the build teams aspect is developing high performance teamwork to boost business productivity. Funny enough, that's the title we've just used. That was completely accidental. And here I talk a lot about, what are they? Why does it matter? How does this give you an edge? And there's a dog somewhere barking. We're live, baby, so everything happens. And I have these series of videos here, which is called Unlock the 7 Stages of High Performance. It's an outline. Okay. Now there's a series of 6 videos here that go through each of those 7 stages. And so some of it's about building trust, conflict, all the stages of high performance, collaborating, networking, growth mindset. These are all important aspects to build the skills necessary to create the individuals and the team coherence that make things work. And these videos work one after another. And Berdin and I did these together, and we had the if you can see here, we start with a white belt and then we go to the yellow belt, then we go to the orange belt and the green belt and the blue belt and the black belt, and they all work in sequence together, so one builds on the next one. So you go through these in a series. They're very short little videos, 2 or 3 minutes each, and they give you a flavor for what that aspect of high performance is. And then if you like that, then builds your knowledge up to kind of go, okay, look, actually, I really want one of these. I'd love to speak to Andrew about, how do I do that in my team? So, that's where, we can have that consultation, and, we can talk about the outcomes that you look for and design a program. This is important. So even though these are, this is a program which I've developed, it is flexible and able to be bespoke around your specific needs, your business priorities, when we meet, how we meet. It can be in person, it can be online, or it can be a hybrid of those two elements. So that's how I fit that one together, and this has been really successful for me for developing high performing teams. So there's a process, there's a structure, and this is a world-class program. So, and there's some quotes here from people that have gone through the program. So, it's a world-class program that I've put together over many years. It started with the inception of this book, Developing High-Performing Teams. So, but there's nothing like having a teacher and someone to lead you through that process. You can't do it on your own, folks. That's my. So
to get out of your own way, you need the magic sauce, right?
You need the magic sauce.
Is a coach, mentor, challenger, agent de provocateur, as it comes. And Andrew, you are the man. I think when it comes to that you are incredibly good at it. So
it's a passion of mine, as you can probably tell.
And absolutely, and then here's the little top. What's it? The top gift. So what's this?
Well, this is quite interesting. So you could. How do you know? This is quite often I get this question asked. Well, how do I know when I've got a high performing team? What indicators are there? What are the KPIs of this? Well, there kind of ain't a number. There's no magic number that does this, folks. But what I have built is this sort of questionnaire-based approach, which is called a team assessment review. And I find this really powerful. I get teams to do this as soon as they meet together for the first time and they're intentionally wanting to become a high-performing team. Okay. So doing this questionnaire as a team, you do it individually, but each person in the team does it. Okay. And you can do this. It's useful to do this at the beginning of a process because it benchmarks that team. Now, it's a subjective approach, right? So, there is no magic number that comes out of this. But the interesting thing is that when you start to add this together, like I said earlier, when you start to add subjective data together, it starts to become more objective. It starts to have some sort of trending data that gives you pointers in terms of what we're good at, what we're not so good at, what we really need to work on here. And that's really fascinating because that helps the team to get their own self-awareness of what they need to develop to get their team to high performance. And then you can use it to measure again and again and again. Now, again, it's not a measure. I've used that word measure, but it's more you're getting the kind of trend, you're getting the taste for the sauce. How do you make a sauce?
Feel of it.
You don't always go for the ingredients, do you? You kind of have the ingredients, but how you put those flavors together on that day may just change depending on, what happens during the day. So, lots of this is a heuristic. It's not a precise recipe, but the trends are enough to help you. Now, I'm happy to offer, the first 5 people want that, please pop into the chat, you'd live one of those and I'll send you one free of charge without, use it to your team, use it to have a go at it. And then contact me later. But this is
I think that's an amazing opportunity. I mean, crikey, that's an amazing opportunity. All that there just to get started. Again, I think that one of the things that for me that's come out today, chatting with you and listening to comments people are making, is this is tricky. I mean, it's tangible. I mean, I feel like I'm getting there, but just having that guidance and knowing that you're on the right path.
You know what? It's like sourdough. Like if you've ever made sourdough, now everyone, surely everybody made sourdough in the pandemic, right? And if you didn't, you know someone who did. The ingredients for sourdough are really easy. They're simple. Sorry, not easy. They're really simple. There's very few ingredients, but you need a few things to make it work. First of all, you need a starter, right? Now that starter's that's like this hidden magic. How do you create a starter? Well, there's 150,000 billion ways of doing that apparently on YouTube, because my wife's tried it. She said, just give me a single formula to make a starter, and different people have got different things. Okay, so you have to learn the feel of getting a starter, and the starter's a bit like that team assessment program. It's a bit like starting a team off. You need the kind of magic starter, but then you put the ingredients together, and then you create the bread, the dough mix, if you like. And the ingredients are simple, but it ain't easy to cook sourdough bread. It turns out it can turn out differently, and different environmental conditions produce different stuff. So it's simple, but it ain't easy. Right, so you need a guide.
Complexity and the simplicity, right? So I'm Andrew. What a show! I mean, I'm just aware that you've asked me to come and ask questions, and I know we could carry on talking forever. Brady, what sort of comments are coming in about the top 3 tips? What are their top 3 tips? People's top 3 tips for high performing teams. And Andrew, I'm going to come to you, and then you can sort of take us away for the summing up for what's happening next week.
I don't see anyone adding their top 3 tips. Just Joe saying, well, can't recreate a KFC without the secret sauce. And she said, I don't lead a team, but part of one, would be interested to have one if possible. And then Jonas just stick his hand up and said he wants one.
Yep,
so one of your forms, yes.
Fine.
So I'd really encourage people to, this is not about the definitive list. The idea is, having listened to this show, having thought about this, what are the top 3 things that you're going to have to start, or you think you need to start, which is that whole thing about starting your, sourdough. Yeah. That for me is it. And, you might choose another 3 ingredients another time, but what the brain does is we'll say, well, it's too difficult. I can't possibly do this. And it's fantastic. I love it. Andrew, Iain, Verdine, that's great. And everybody else, but I can't start. And the real thing here is to simplify so that you can actually start getting traction. Yeah. And then I would even say, once you've got your list of 3, so do this, because again, otherwise what happens is that just remains a nice, frippery on a Tuesday morning to listen. Well, it does, it's nice. It's entertaining. I feel like I'm doing some work. Well, actually, as coaches, we're about moving it to the next level. So make it intentional. What are the top 3 things? And then
we've got Steve.
Focus on the one. One thing's going to make bigger. Steve, go for it.
Yeah, Steve Whittle said, number 1, set goals and objectives. So the first step for any team is to set clear goals and objectives. This provides a common focus and helps to ensure everyone is working towards the same goal. 2, communicate effectively. Beautiful. Good communication is essential for any team. Make sure everyone is aware of what is expected of them and what they need to do to help the team achieve its goals. 3, stay organized. A high-performing team needs to be well organized and efficient. Make sure everyone knows their roles and responsibilities and use tools and systems to help you stay organized and on track.
Lovely. Beautiful. Yeah,
love that, Steve.
Hot 3 tips. And Elaine said this, actually, just to bring Elaine in here.
Yeah.
Go on, Birding.
Wait, let me just find that. I can't read from there.
Sure, yeah.
When I have weeded teams as an external consultant, some of them have kept in touch and thanked me for the way in which I guided them towards their new, happier and more successful life. Happy endings can happen, however, we can't change individuals. It's up to them, and it's up to the leader to have the balls to do the weeding. That's where some leaders need externals like us to support them.
Spot on. Yeah,
nicely said.
Nicely said.
Because then you become another team, right? The coach becomes another team in a sense to help with the leadership. Any other top 3 tips there, Berdine?
We've got Maria saying building positivity and resilience in individuals before they are brought together for team development. Laurie Hale said, morning, excellent session, but now I must get back to my high performance team for a 10 a.m. meeting. And Shane Ward said, number 1, high performing teams need visionary leaders who spend time in tomorrow.
Yeah.
2, they make teams feel they are a part of something bigger than themselves. And 3,
Shane.
they invite participation of a platform of trust. People follow what they admire. Leaders must be admirable.
Shane, baby, you're on it. That's great. Yeah, I love it. My top tips are more on the effectiveness side rather than the efficiency side, because I believe that effectiveness trumps efficiency, but you need both, right? But for me, I would say calm down your ego, folks. Leadership isn't about how you control. It's about developing the EQ, the emotional intelligence, the soft skills, the self-awareness, the impact on self, building relationships and self-awareness. That's the first one. So ego, monitor your ego. Big egos don't work well in high-performing teams. Develop a growth mindset, and that is has the intention to life happens because of me, because I'm here, through me, because of me, and not life happens to me. Oh, life happens to me. This has happened to me today. It's different than that. You are in the team. Life happens because I'm there, and we are there together. Okay. So that's the growth mindset piece. And then finally, the third piece for me is, give people your time, make their day. Attend to what people are saying to you in all walks of life. Wherever you're on the train or wherever, you can practice making someone's day by listening to them, by talking to them, by nodding, showing gratitude, blessing others. I mean, that's a word we don't use very often, sorry. Being generous to other people as a leader, be I to the power of we, and be that in action, and make others' day around you. That is so powerful. It's a simple thing to do. It's really easy.
Kindness.
You just honour people around you.
Yeah.
And it makes a massive, accept people for who they are. And if they're having a bad day, they're having a bad day. So what? You don't know what's happened to them. They could have run over the cat or had an argument with their partner or stuff like that. People have bad days. It's okay. But come alongside them differently and you'll get a different response. Watch out for those conscious biases that get in the way. So
brilliant.
Yeah, that's my 3
brilliant
tips.
I think that's fantastic, and I think there's something here about capturing those top 3 tips, Andrew, in a follow-up or a LinkedIn post or something like that, because I think there's that collective wisdom there about how to capture these things. And again, people start choosing the ones that they're going to make their sourdough starter.
Nice.
It's been an absolute delight to be with you and to turn the tables and to be able to ask the questions and get you to answer some of the stuff. And again, there's loads more to this, obviously, but I think we probably should pause there and say, right, okay, fantastic, and round of applause. Can we have the confetti for you? Is that okay, Andrew?
Yeah, well,
I can't press the button.
See what I can do there. Let me just I can do some
and the cheering
confetti. Let's just find out where that is. So yeah, here we go. I'll be clearing this up for ages, won't I?
Yeah.
So,
big love to you, Andrew. That's fantastic. And Berdine, thank you as well for putting up with me and allowing me to come and play today. And obviously, for Jonas and everybody who's been listening, I'm going to hand over to you now, Andrew, to carry on and talk about what's happening next week.
Exactly.
Wrap up, right? So that's it. So it's the wrap up and thinking about next week. So
okay,
it's been a joy to be with you. I'll stay on, obviously, and then we'll see you afterwards.
Well, we'll probably drop into the Discord room again for the backstage rowdies for those of you that want to join us, and I've got the link. So Goose for next week, folks, very quickly, Tuesday the 25th of October at 8:45 a.m. UK time. I'll be hanging out with Jamie Radford, founder of Accounts Payable Association and leading finance influencer. He's a really interesting guy, this, and he will be talking about what he's learned from building and leading a large social community, what we can learn to build our community. So Jamie's going to help us think about that. What is community? How do we develop it? How do we build it? How do we do that in-house, externally, etc. So we've got all of those to come. So this and a whole lot more. We can't wait. Be there or be square. And we are going to wrap up now. So thank you very much for listening. Sorry we went a bit over. It's been great to hang out with you guys today. And thanks very much for being part of this show, folks. It created such a great community vibe. And we can't do this without you. So the podcast will be available in the next 24 hours, folks, or 48 hours. In the meantime, it's a wrap from us, from myself, from Dr. Iain Price, from Berdine. We wish you a great week ahead, and I'll be clearing this confetti for ages. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Cheers, all the best.
Bye-bye.
Great to be with you.